So you believe that the private companies are going to open their books up to you more readily than they would the city?
Yeah.
So that you can determine if they are financially viable to come in and start a business? They're going to do that more readily with you?
Well, let me qualify something there. You know, I think you get to look at the cities, at their books if they want something. If they want to just come in and start a business, I don't think we get to look.
Okay.
It's a private company.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
If they
Good point.
if
Private
they,
company.
Yeah. If they come in and say, you know, we could sure use a little incentive money to do some, I don't know, curb cuts or whatever, then that's a different conversation.
And one of the things I experienced that when I was contemplating, when I was working to relocate here, the city had land and there was private land, and if I wanted to go for the city land, I had to open my books and basically they were published, and I wasn't willing to do that. And so that makes an advantage to a company for land and other support that with the 501c6, although our actions are completely audited by the city, the details of us working with a private company are shielded within the organization. And people don't like that to be done, but these are private companies, and they're not going to just say, look, everybody in the world can open up and look at my books. They're not going to do that. We got to be realistic about it, and that's what we're going to offer that service so they don't have to.
Then we anticipate that we're going to be signing non-disclosure agreements with these companies as well. So,
But you're, okay, but you as representatives of the city and
No.
Okay, so you're going to look at their books and you won't disclose that information? Is that what you just said?
We're not representatives of the city. We're contracted with the city.
yeah, we cannot in any way be an agent of the city.
You're a facilitator to a business that wants to come in here and
Right.
and you're gonna tell them, well, if you want us to help and you want these certain enhancements, you let us look at your books, and then that's a secret between you and them.
To the extent that state requirements, for instance, there's specific right now state requirements of performance if you want tax abatements and other things. I can't remember, training and all these other things. To the extent you have to prove that, that's what these people will be required to disclose. To work with us or work with the city, we're not going to disclose their whole financial background. I mean, we're not going to be doing that. I don't think that's a realistic expectation.
Yeah, you probably never looked at the state's webpage, but for example, if you want to do a property tax abatement, you have to have a certain number of employees, you have to have health care, you have to pay health care for your employees, and so on.
And that's all public information.
That's public information.
Yeah, right.
And what are you talking about that wouldn't be public information?
Their profit and loss statement.
Why would you need to know that? And
Because you want to know whether the company's viable.
so would you disclose that to the city council?
We would disclose its viability.
Yeah.
Or not.
But not actual numbers.
No, correct.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we have we're mandated to prove performance because we have a performance contract. The city's recourse if we don't perform is to remove our contract. So the city council does have final say if we stay in existence or not. So it's to our benefit, to our advantage with all the effort we put into this as private citizens to make this work, and we're not taking this haphazardly. We are very, very conscious about our duty to the city with these funds being given to us. I don't know if anyone else wants to make it say. I take it very seriously that we're using these city funds, because just to be perfectly honest, I'm a quite conservative individual, and this is a bit contrary to my beliefs of government, but I saw no other way to fund this process going forward, because there have been so many other things already tried in the city that have failed.
One other question I have, you've received some criticism that, and I haven't even met the woman, and so some criticism that the new incoming CEO is from Laramie, Wyoming, and you are also from Laramie, Wyoming, and that perhaps there was some, I don't know, something with that.
Yeah, we talked about that at the time. I've known Gay professionally for probably 20 years.
Okay.
But, you know, we went through
How many applicants did you receive for the CEO position?
24.
24? How many of them from Southern Nevada, do you remember? Rough numbers.
Four or five.
Yeah, it wasn't over 5, I think it was 4.
And we had a couple from Massachusetts, one from Illinois.
Indiana,
Yeah.
California, Utah,
Colorado, Utah.
Arizona.
They spread all over the place.
Okay.
And again, one of the things in this, we had a very thorough process in how we looked at everyone as far as the resumes that came in, and we were looking for specific talents. And those talents were bringing new business to a town. A lot of the people that we saw the resumes of had great resumes as far as economic development was concerned, but it wasn't in the area that we're focused on. And so that helped us narrow down. And then we had phone calls, and eventually we had interviews. And again, we kept focusing on who had the best credentials to bring new business to town.
How many
Well, if I
did
can
you
add-
do a final interview with?
Excuse me?
How many candidates did you do a final interview, face-to-face type interview, before you made your selection?
We did four video conference interviews, which was part of the challenge. We had one gentleman that didn't make the cut because he got flustered with the actual trying to set up a video conference. So that
Why
was
do you
part of
think
the
that's
screen.
important?
Well, it was a tactic for us to do it economically versus, I mean, we didn't have the resources to fly all these people in to do this, so we tried to do it in today's technology. So we do that, and it's a good test to the people too, to see if they can manage a challenge of video conference. I don't know if anybody of you guys have involved in video conferences. They don't always go real well, and so it's kind of a challenge of how do you shift gears and how you kind of shift and say, okay, how are we going to make this work? That was part of it, but we had 4 video conferences, and then we did just have one. We did pay the expenses of the final person to make the final decision, plus what always goes along with it. That person has to make the decision to accept the position, which means visiting, looking at real estate, looking where they're going to live, and do their due diligence too. So that was the final, the final.
We also had a very extensive list of specific questions that we asked every candidate that we did interview. And in fact, we sent out a question and had people send a 2-page answer to the question. And that told us a lot about the individual.
Their abilities to write and communicate and things. So we had a very deliberate process that we went through that Roger was very instrumental in helping us set up with his experience. So so it was, you know, to say, and one of the things I want to say about hiring Gay is that one of my personal biggest reasons for choosing her is she was the organization in Wyoming. She wasn't a part of an organization in Wyoming. And so she has had exceptional experience with small organizations like Mesquite needs. We don't need one cog in a big machine. We need somebody that can handle all facets of it. And she was probably about the only one that we had that was presented to us that had that experience for us.
What was interesting about, and I've been in a lot of these types of interviews, hiring people especially for nonprofits. And what was interesting is we got responses back, we got resumes back. We all did our individual homework and came to our board meeting and said, okay, let's line them up. Who do you think is? And it was uncanny how the top 7 came out, the top 4 came out, and the top 1 came out, and it was done.
We probably only discussed 2 of that we kind of bantered a little bit about. Out of all of them.
We you know, well, it could be, couldn't be, you know, maybe, possibility, but we tried to do individual input, and we were all pretty much right dead on, right to the end. So, and that's good. If you've ever been in an interview process, and especially all the questions that we asked and how we went about it, when you can individually come together and say, you know, that is the person I have a really good gut feeling about, it normally works out very well.
I'd answer your question a little bit further to say, you know, it was clearly a board decision, and if anybody thinks that one individual can roll over these guys, you're nuts.
And we did address that question directly to George. We just wanted to make absolutely sure.
You know, it was
and
interesting.
she independently saw the ad on her own, responded to the ad, and went through the process just like everybody else went through the process.
And she
So
never
there was
worked.
no favoritism.
She never worked for George, or George never worked for
No.
her, or were never in the same organization except in economic development
Right.
as a broad base. So
As a professional, they knew each other.
yeah.
I didn't even know that he knew her until after we
Well,
said,
Laramie's
that's
small.
the person that I found out about it.
Yeah,
So.
yeah,
Have you heard any of these criticisms before
Sure.
sure.
about the chamber and?
Sure.
We stay, I think collectively, we stay pretty much in tune to a lot of what's being said.
Is that the purpose
But
of
that's-
today's press media
No, I think,
meeting?
I'll let George finish, but I think we got to a point where now we have a story to tell. We've been working on this constantly for months. A lot of hours have been put into this, but we felt, okay, we're moving along, and this is the point where we have a story to tell. And I don't think of it as trying to, people taking a shots at us, so we're gonna write a paper to defer their shots. That's not where we're coming from at all. We're saying, here's what we've accomplished.
This is something we'd like to continue going forward.
Yeah.
Periodically,
And Miles-
press
and
conference,
I can,
bring people up to date.
yeah,
And
and
the
I
Miles-
can vouch for that because I've been asking him to do an article for my magazine ever
You know,
since I
we've been
found
so
out about
busy.
it. I know, and every time and then they're like, we're not quite ready yet, we're getting everything
Yeah, I
together
keep getting
and
that
we're-"
same response,
I know.
Kathy. I don't
Well,
know.
now we can.
And the milestone, one of the milestones that I think brought this about, in my mind anyhow, is we just took $20,000 from the city. And it's time to report. And we were very conscious, and we had discussions about this for the public's knowledge, that when do we draw the money? And I said, we don't draw the money until we have a major milestone of an executive director.
Right.
And we took care of all of that on our own,
Yep.
all the process, everything else, to get it all done. And then now we have somebody, we have to have the draw to pay her salary, and so now's the time to report. Here's where we're at, because we have a major milestone. We're drawing cash from the city. So I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but that's how I felt about it.
I'd share a couple of anecdotes with you that I think are kind of funny. Ken and I were at a meeting in Las Vegas a month ago, and we were sitting next to each other, and he looks around the table and he says, you know, it occurs to me that you and I are the only two guys sitting at this table who aren't drawing a paycheck.
Ooh, welcome to my world.
Yeah, you want to come work for me? I got a space
You
for
can
you.
work for us and do that.
Yeah.
And on the way home, we'd been in Vegas, and I looked at my watch and I said, yeah, not only did we not draw a paycheck, we're going on an 8-hour day. We're supposed to be retired.
Yeah.